Good afternoon. This is Harold Zawatsky. I am the chair of the Fairfield Board of Assessment Appeals. Today is Monday, April the 12th. The time is 6:09 p.m. And our agenda today includes a question and answer with the revaluation company and deliberation on our voting on our appeals that were properly brought before the board. And I am calling this meeting to order, and I will do a roll call of the members. Kathleen Griffin?
Here.
Yeah.
Judy Sablack?
Here.
Paulette Crozo?
Here.
John Spoyer?
Here.
Peter Rupert?
Here.
Ronit Patel?
Here.
Kathleen Griffin is not here. Alexis Harrison is not here. And I am Harold Zawatsky.
Harold, this is Kathleen. It's Catherine Giff who's not here, not me. I am here.
Yes, didn't I say Catherine Giff? I'm
I
sorry.
think you said Kathleen Griffin. It's okay.
Catherine, thank you for catching that.
No
I
worries.
thought you did that because Kathleen is taking notes as secretary. But no, I'm glad. Great. Thanks for the clarification.
All right. The first item on our agenda is we've invited a representative from the revaluation company, MVS, Mike Fazio, to discuss with us the valuation process for the neighborhood code 66, which is the Fairfield Beach area. And I believe that the board has submitted some questions to Mike in advance to address. So, Mike, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
So without further ado, I would like to hand it over to you for your comments. Thank you.
Okay. So the valuation of the beach area, first the land was valuated based on land sales. We had quite a number of land sales down there. When I talk about land sales, some of them were improved. The building was demolished and then a new structure was built on the property. The neighborhood was divided into separate sections, and there's special calcs on the different lots. They range from FB1 through FB9, and FB sounds for Fairfield Beach. These factors were already in the system. We adjusted the rates to be applied to different sections of the beach, depending on what the lot values were selling for in that area. So if you look at, and I don't know if you have a map in front of you, or if there was a map produced at one point that has the location codes on it.
Yeah, this is Kathleen. Ross, did you upload that? Or if not, can we get that on the web now and everybody can look at it, or someone can share it?
Do you want me to share it or do you want me to upload it? I can upload it also, but for right now, do you want to?
Yeah, I'm thinking, why don't you do both? Because the public can't see the share and they may want to follow along with the map. So if you tell us where you're putting it, or, put a link on, I can put a link on the homepage. If you tell me where the link is, we can get that online. So that would be helpful for everybody who can't see the share.
Okay. Yeah, let me, that'll take a second.
Okay.
I'll put it where all the appeals are. Everybody should know where that is.
Kathleen, I have a question. How can can the public see it if they're doing this by phone, or is there some way for them to see the map?
This is Kathleen. Yes, that's what he's going to do now. He's going to put it on the website so they can find it on the website. I'm also going to, as soon as he puts it up, I'm going to add a link to the news feed for tonight on the homepage that says what we were going to do. And I'll put the link there so they can just go there. Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it.
And this is Harold. If we could announce what the link is so that people can go to it, that would be very helpful as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm having some trouble here. Yeah, unfortunately, my system is hung. So it's going to take me a little more than a minute to get this loaded.
This is Kathleen. Ross, you sent me a draft earlier today. Did you change it at all? If not, I can grab the draft.
Let me give it one more shot here.
Okay.
The file name is going to be NHBD for neighborhood, 66 location codes.
Could you please repeat?
NHBD, 66 location codes.
And that is to be found on the, this is Harold, on the BAA website?
It's going to be the same location where all the backup docs are stored.
The individual appeals or the upper folder from that?
I'm going to put it right with the individual appeals.
Okay, can you put it in the other documents folder instead, the 2021 other documents?
Sure.
Okay, that's where the engineering document is. I think that's a good.
You recite the URL for that, please?
Yeah, I'm going to put a link for it on the homepage in a second. As soon as he uploads it, I'll grab it.
But I'd like a URL for it. And I'm on the meeting, so I'd like to see the URL. If you could tell me what the URL is.
Kathleen, you wanted it in which folder now? Other docs?
I thought other docs would be, yeah.
Okay.
It's a Word document.
That comes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Word document. I couldn't get it to come out as a PDF. I'm I'm hoping it displays properly when it loads.
Yeah, sometimes let me see. Sometimes you have to have Word to be able to open it.
Yeah, I'm going to try again as a PDF, but that was giving me some trouble.
I'm on the BAA site and I'm not seeing it yet.
You have to go into the /files. You have to go into the files and documents folder and then use the drop down boxes to navigate to it.
I'm seeing all other files and documents. It says choose a category.
Yeah.
And what do you,
You also need to refresh.
Yeah, you might have to refresh your browser.
backup, deliberation, general, or hearing schedules? Which one?
Backup.
Okay, that wasn't clear in anything that you were mentioning before. So, okay.
Did you find it,
Okay,
Judy?
so in other words, if anybody wants to look at that, you're gonna go to the BAA website. And then where it says all other files to documents, you hit backup documents. And then another child menu comes underneath that and you hit 2021 backup documents. Another child menu comes up from there. And that's where, wait a minute, and I'm looking for that, appeals other documents. It says, here we go, and it's a Word document. So you've got to do those two child menus once you get to that spot. Did everybody get that?
Yeah, I just uploaded it as a PDF too. So if you refresh, it's now there as a PDF. It seemed to work for me.
Yeah, it won't print to a PDF for me.
Yeah, somebody take a look at it and see. If you refresh in that folder, see if you can see it.
This is Harold. I can see it.
As a PDF? Okay, so then
I see
I'm
it.
going to
Looks fine.
put the
in the
link to
Word
that.
document.
Yeah, let me put the link to that in the news feed on the homepage. Let's see.
I see it, but I pulled up the document.
The Word doc, yeah, there is a Word. Okay. Kathleen, did everybody get it?
We could have heard like deliberated two cases in the time we've been waiting to do this.
I know Alexis is still trying to get in, so I'm trying to send her the links too. So, all right, let's see. There's the WebEx4 link.
Oh,
Are we good? Wait, Harold? Can hear you. Harold, you're on mute.
Is everyone comfortable that they can see what they want to see? Okay. Mr. Fazio, do you want to continue then?
Sure.
Judy,
So-
you're on.
You could hear me?
Yes.
All right. So if you're looking at, like I was saying, the land was divided in and had special calcs, which are these FB1 through FB9 along the beachfront, and then PC4 along the creek side. And I'll explain how these land values were derived. So if you look at on the map, the FB1, that's your most valuable land on Fairfield Beach. And that's supported by 2 sales. And the 2 sales were located at 193 Fairfield Beach Road. That property, the land there sold for, I believe, 2,725,000. And then at 195 Fairfield Beach Road, the land there sold for 3,450,000. Then 2 new houses were constructed subsequent to that. But when they bought the property and they tore down the houses that were there, that's what they paid for them to build the new houses. The next section of land that is valued is FB9. And the FB9 land, we didn't have any land sales there. So what I did is I looked at the land sales in FB1 and I looked at the sales in FB9 and I extracted the land value out, and it's slightly lower than the FB1 land sales. In the FB8, which is the majority of Fairfield Beach, those properties, there was quite a few land sales there that support the land values, and I'll go through them. There's a land sale at 1091, I believe, Fairfield Beach Road. That sold for $1,520,000. Was a slightly larger lot. I think it was 0.26 acres. The next land sale is at 14. Hold on, I got it here. It was at 1505 Fairfield Beach Road. Here, the land was sold for $1,300,000. They're constructing a new house on that property currently. Further, as we move further down the beach, there was a couple more land sales. So now if you're going for, and that's all in FB8. If you look in FB7, which is the least valuable beachfront land, there was a land sale for $1,100,000 or $1 million at the location of 2101, and they're currently built a house there that's listed for sale or has recently sold. Now, when we're looking at the creek side, there was a couple land sales on the creek side, which are the PC4 land adjustment factors. The creek size lot, there was a sale at 1492 Fairfield Beach Road, sold for $800,000. Part of that land sale also included, there was a house in the front of the property that the owner decided to purchase for a few $100,000 and knock it down to not have the influence of the house on a property where a new house was just built. The new house is currently, I believe, under contract as a build to suit in the range of 2.5 million. Located next to that, there was another land sale at 1504 Fairfield Beach Road. They paid $650 for that lot back in 2018 or 17, November of 2017. There was some more Creekside land sale. Those were included. Yeah, that's 2109. And I think that's the majority of the Creekside land sales. We have a spreadsheet, and I believe Ross shared it at some point, that have all the sales on it. So we set the land values based on these sales. The last set of sales is this FB5, and the FB5 are on the beach side. There's smaller lots that have no beach frontage. Different set of sales similar to the Creekside sales were used for these properties. There was a sale at 46 Lighthouse Point Road. This was an additional land sale. This is similar to those little parcels that you see that aren't developed, that have garages on them, that are on the creek side with the main house on the beach side. This property was purchased in 2020 for $250,000. It's 4,100 square feet. It was purchased just for parking. It has no beach frontage, and it's located one or two lots in on Lighthouse Point Road, and it's 4,100 square feet, and it's used for parking. So those are basically the land sales that we used in deriving land value along Fairfield Beach Road. From there, we also examined all the improved property sales. And I believe Ross had shared a spreadsheet with the board that have all these sales included on them. We could run through them one by one, or if you have individual questions, I think that's probably the best way to go about it. And the way I looked at it is there's different categories of improved sales. There are older properties that are non-FEMA compliant. There's older properties that become FEMA compliant, either they were raised to the FEMA levels, and then there's the new construction. And the market looks at all three of these types of properties differently. With the most being the new construction that's FEMA compliant. These properties are being sold for well over $2.5 to $3 million at this point. I believe the house at 1505 is a build to suit, and somewhere in the 3.2 range. There was a sale at 1311, which a house that was built in 2017 that sold for 2.7 million. And then the last category were the trophy properties that sold on the beach. The first being the Sweedler property that was located at I think 475 Fairfield Beach Road. This house sold for $4,650,000. It was a contemporary style home. built in 1983, totally updated. It was a fabulous home. It was also located in the special calc of that FB1. The other trophy style home was located at 831 Fairfield Beach Road. This is as you pass the bend where Reef Road intersects with Fairfield Beach Road, right past Lighthouse Point. I think 2 or 3 houses in. It was Terry Keegan's sold the house. This house sold for $4,150,000. These were several of the better sales. I use these to comp the better homes along Fairfield Beach Road, similar to the ones in the FB1's location, like the house that was built at 193 Fairfield Beach Road, the house that was built at 195 Fairfield Beach Road. The other house that stands out that was a fabulous house is the one all the way at the end of the point of Fairfield Beach Road, the old Jackie Durrell house. This house was updated. It's a fabulous house. It's on the point. It has almost 360-degree views of water. These sales were used to comp those really nice houses. The new construction, there were several new construction homes that sold, like 1311 and a few others, and we could go through them if you'd like. But I think if you have any individual questions that want to be answered, I think that's probably the best way we could address your concerns.
You're on mute, Harold.
This is Harold. It has been asked by some homeowners that their values should be compared with their neighbors based upon square foot calculations. And can you perhaps talk about how the size of the land, let's look at the land, varies based upon the value of the land varies based upon the size of the parcel of land, given the fact that there is a curve in the values that a plot of land that's twice as big is not necessarily twice as valuable, or half as big, half as valuable.
Correct, and that is true. And if you look at sales, and I pick out 2 sales right off the top of my head. The one at 1505 Fairfield Beach Road, and then there was a sale at 1091, I believe. Let me pull it up. Right, 1091. The 1091 house sold for $1,520,000. It was 0.26 of an acre, where the house at 1505 is 0.2 of an acre. So it's slightly larger, and it doesn't seem like a lot, but on the beach, every square foot counts. And most of the lots down there are smaller lots as compared to the rest of the town. So they're not paying proportionally the same per square foot. So that's where the land curve. So the land curve on smaller lots per square foot might be a lot higher than if you had a larger lot. And there's other factors included in some. Then we're talking about the beachfront, that's one thing, but on the creek side, a lot of those lots, some of them had wetlands, they're larger lots that's not usable, and factors were applied to those lots. But on the beach side, there is a curve that was used, and the larger lots also had more front footage of beach frontage. So the majority of the lots down there have 50 foot. if it's a lot, but some of them are slightly smaller, some are bigger. Depending on the width of the lot also affects the value. So all these taken into consideration is where the land curve comes into play. And what I did is once I created the land curve and applied the appropriate factors, I then went back and compared to my sales to see how the land was tracking with the sales.
Thank you.
Hey, Harold, this is Ross. I just want to add, if you remember, I shared a spreadsheet showing what happens if you take the average square footage and apply it to all the properties, and I happened to use the creekside lots, and what you saw there is that the range of value from the low to the high was extreme. I mean, we had some of the larger lots coming in at over 200,000, when with the curve, I think they're coming in and, probably around an 80, 90,000 max.
Yes, I do recall that. Yes, does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah.
Yes, Kathleen?
Sure. This is Kathleen. Mike, you went through the different codes down there, but I don't know, did you touch on BP1, which is the even houses on the north side of Fairfield Beach Road, and WP4? Or did I just miss that in my notes? And we talked about FB8, 7, PC4, FB4. We just wanted to make sure we hit them all. So BP1, did we talk about the north side of Fairfield Beach Road? Or the even side, I should say, not on the peninsula, on the main part.
Right. So I think the BP1, the factor on there, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is set at a 1. These are these codes were on these properties prior to us starting the revaluation. These codes have been on there for quite a while. The other codes that we added on later, whereas in the Sherman district, I made some additional codes based on the distance from Fairfield Beach towards Post Road. But these codes were in existence prior to us starting the revaluation. They've been on these properties for quite a few years. So I think that BP1, which are the properties along Fairfield Beach Road across the street, I think that factor is a 1 factor, so it's not really affecting value much.
Yes,
And
Alexis?
WP4? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Kathleen. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, I think WP4 is the other one, right? That we didn't talk about. We talked about PC4, but WP4 is like the north side of the peninsula, those lots shortly.
Right, so WP4 is similar to the PC4. It has a less of a value as a PC4. The PC4 for the creekside, the majority of the creekside lots, these WP4 lots didn't really have they're creekside lots, but they don't have boat access. Whereas the PC4 lots have boat access. Most of these people who own these lots, they have the ability to access the water in the creek with either a small boat or a canoe or a larger boat. Whereas if you're in the WP4 section at low tide, I think it's more mudflats.
Thank you.
Alexis, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. And Mr. Fazio, thank you for being here. I am late. I have a job and I was here working till about 6:15 or so. So sorry. So thank you for your presence. And we all get a lot of emails from people, and honestly, people are really upset by these evaluations from your firm. Why are they so high?
To be honest with you, I don't really think they're high as I track the new sales coming in. The market is increasing. If you look at sales that have transpired since the reval down on the beach, the numbers are lower than the new sales prices going in down there. There's nothing for sale. If you talk to the people down there who are looking to purchase, this is one of the hottest markets in the state at this point. I know that 1505 Fairfield Beach Road, it's a lot sold for $1.3 million. They're building a house well over $3 million. On the creek side, they're purchased lots for $700,000-800,000. When you look at what the houses are selling for, the brand new houses all have twos in front of them, and that's in the $2 million ranges. The market has increased tremendously. If you look in 2017, land sales on Fairfield Beach Road, we're averaging about $650,000 for a lot. Today, that same property or that same piece of land is selling for $1.3 million to $1.5 million. So that's showing that in 5 years, it doubled. Construction costs, as we all know, and we read in the newspapers, has quadrupled in the last 4 years. And when you're looking at, and this is for new homes, and when you're looking at properties that are currently on the market has increased tremendously down there. Look at the sales. Look at the sales that have transpired down there compared to all the sales are applied into the model. And to those sales, it's tracking with the model. So the properties that don't sell use the same model as to the properties that do sell. And, I look at a lot of the ones who are appealing and who are not appealing. And these properties, some of them are older properties. They're valued at $1.2 million, $1.3 million. That's what they're paying for land today on the beach side. So to say that it's overvalued, I think it's.
Well, I'm not suggesting it's overvalued by any. I'm just asking a question. We represent. We're the Board of Assessment Appeals. We represent the taxpayer. You live. Do you live in town?
I do.
Where do you live?
I live at 1495 Fairfield Beach Road.
Okay, so I imagine that you probably you feel it, and that's the sentiment that I'm going. Judy, I know Judy has questions. I have one more question. So can you just tell me where you get the neighborhood codes from? Because I'm a little bit at a loss with some of the neighborhood codes. Last week we had one of my appellants was on North Pine Creek Road, and the neighborhood code was the university area. Is that the university area?
So the neighborhood codes, those codes are just numbers in the system.
Okay.
The name's been applied years ago to these codes. The name doesn't really mean anything. It's just to give the viewer within the Canvas system, when they're looking at it, a general area to look at. So if I say that you're in the Sherman district, that doesn't mean that you live right at Sherman School. You could live down on the end of Rolling Road, which is the Beach District. Everyone calls these areas different names, but what I look at are numbers, and we apply a neighborhood code and then adjust that neighborhood based on the property's location within that neighborhood. So you got to forget about what the neighborhood is called. You have to look at more what the number is and does it make sense when the valuation model is giving you the value of the property. So
that's
it might be on
that's
North
very
Pine
helpful.
Creek Road. Excuse me?
Oh, no, sorry, what was the question?
Oh, I said, so if a property, it's saying North Pine Creek Road is university area, that doesn't mean that it's next to the university. It means that it's in the number that was called university area at some point in time. I don't really call the areas by their names more than this is neighborhood 66, this is neighborhood 65, this is neighborhood 40.
Are you aware that this board goes by these arbitrary numbers? I mean, I've lived in Fairfield for a long time, more years, you know, I grew up here. And we called North Pine Creek, was North Pine Creek Road, Judy? Well, I don't know, whatever it is. To me, it's not really that close to the university area as we would identify it. So I'm just curious where these numbers came from. I'm trying to understand that. Because a lot of my constituents, the people that we represent, are asking us that.
Right, so and your answer should be that you're in neighborhood, whatever that neighborhood number is, rather than you're in the university area. They're not in the university area. It's just a number that is applied to the location within the town. And at some point, within the system, you have to put a name to it. You could call it anything. I didn't change those names. Those names have been there for probably 4 or 5 reval cycles. What I did is I looked at the land values in specific areas to make sure they made sense when I put them into the model.
Okay. All right, that's very good. Those are all the questions I have for now. I
Okay.
may have more, so hang tight. Thank you.
John, you had a question?
Yeah, I just want to, I noticed that with FB8, which is in the light blue, there are some other of the blue colors in PC4 and WP4. Could you address what that's about? I mean, is it the
This is
same
Ross. I can
property?
answer that, John.
Okay, thank you.
What you're seeing there is those are parcels where both the beach and the creek side are one lot. So most of the lots are separated into 2 parcels, but not all of them. So what you're seeing there is it's just one parcel, and because it's a beach side and a creek side, it's showing up as blue. It's not
Okay,
separated as 2.
but are they calculated differently, or are they calculated as FB8? With that?
They're actually calculated identically if there was 1 parcel or 2. So if you were to look at the card for one of those, you would see that each one of those has 2 land lines. One for the beach side, coded the same as all the beach side lots, and a separate land line that's coded identically to all the creek side.
Got it.
So whether
Okay.
it's together as 1 or separated as 2, the value would be identical.
Okay, thanks, Ross.
This is Harold. Judy, you had a question?
Yeah, I had a comment and I guess a question. Mike, I appreciate all the work that you put in here. There is a couple of times you said something that troubled me, and I'm sure other people heard it, so I'd like you to elaborate on it. The revaluation is from 2019 to 2020. October 1, is that correct?
Well, the set of sales that you send to the state for reporting purposes by statute are from October 1 to October 1.
Okay,
However, the set of sales that we use in creating values for the properties, I use the larger set depending on where the location is. You might have to go back many years on specific types of properties. And some properties, if you have enough sales, you don't have to go back a lot of years. So
absolutely. That's my question isn't that, because I totally get that. Totally get that. My comment is that you mentioned that properties were increasing, and that and it kind of the way that I heard it, it was that the properties are increasing in value and they basically have a good deal because that was the reval number that you gave them and everything is increasing. Well, everything increasing everywhere. That doesn't mean that the valuation that you gave them is okay because I think because a lot of them were priced very high. And that they shouldn't be. And we shouldn't be talking about today's market, which you mentioned a few times, and then comparing that to what in the reval number was. That was my concern, and I'm sure other people heard that, and I just wanted to address that with you.
All right, so to clarify what I was saying is, I believe as of October 1st, 2020, that the numbers that are in the revaluation are solid numbers. All I have to do is compare the sales to what the model is spitting out. I had sales up through October 1st, 2020. The model tracked perfectly with those sales. I went on to say that even sales after October 1st, 2020, the model is still consistently tracking with those sales. And now I'm seeing the market even increasing more from those sales.
Well, that's like everywhere, but doesn't mean that whatever numbers are okay because they're less than what's going on right now. It was from 2019 to 2020. I understand that sometimes you got to go out and go prior to that, but I was just a little disconcerted when you mentioned the values of properties going up now and we're pricing now, and it just.
But that's not what I said. I didn't say that I priced them as of today because I did the job on October 1st, 2020. I wouldn't know what they've done today. That's
Yeah,
looking
but a
into the
value
future.
today makes no difference from the 2019 to 2020. So what somebody is building today and is on the market for 3.5 million doesn't mean anything if it wasn't around then. That's what I'm getting at. That just kind of.
Deals that I'm talking about were all transpired and they were inked back in October of 2020. It takes time. All the properties that I spoke about today, they were all in contract or negotiations, or the contract was completed as of October 1st, 2020. I haven't spoken about any sales that transpired after that I used in the reval because we wouldn't have had those sales. What I'm saying is the model is tracking with the current sales. So we're not seeing a decline in the market. We're seeing the market in Fairfield still increasing. So it's a healthy market.
Alexis, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, again, thank you, Mr. Fazio, for being here. I know we have a lot of questions, so thank you for bearing with us. So you were just talking, I just want to confirm that this is true, what you just said to me in my earlier question. It's a pretty hot market right now in the state, and the sales here have increased. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the sales have been when you're looking from 2017, the last revaluation, or 2015, the last revaluation, to 2020, the sales had increased for those point of time. From 2015 to 2020, the sales of it, the property values have increased. The real estate market has increased over that period of time. What I used for my sales in the model, because the way the model works is you put a set of sales in, and this is how it derives the values, is October 1st of 2019 to October 1st, 2020. These are the sales that you derive your statistics for to send to the state to make sure that they're meeting their state guidelines and that the model is confirmed by the sales.
Okay. Now, Mr. Fazio, you gave me your address earlier in our discussion. Now it looks like your land went up 60K. Your dwelling went down about 96,600. You remodeled your kitchen, but your assessment went down by 36,000. Is that right?
So I didn't value my own property. I had the assessor value my property because I do live in town. I paid for my house $1.3 million, and currently my value is at $1.5 million and change. I pulled a permit to do the kitchen. My kitchen, I never did it. They didn't have the money to finish the permit. So the assessor walked through my house. They valued my house. I had nothing to do with the value of my own house.
But it decreased from 2015.
We're not looking at increases or decreases on any property. When I bought the house, I bought it for less than it was valued for in the reval in 2015.
Okay.
It's just,
And again,
I
I'm
looked
not,
at
I'm
the
not
value.
putting you on the stand here. I'm just, look at, we represent taxpayers. You appreciate that. I appreciate that. And we have a lot of questions. We represent the taxpayer. We don't represent the town on this board. We have to understand that here.
This is Harold.
I don't have a problem with it. I live in the town and I've lived
No,
here.
I know you do,
for
but
my
I
life.
just want to make that clear to my colleagues here and to people listening in.
This is Harold. It's been often brought up, the question of FEMA compliance and non-compliance, especially in this area. Do you feel that you had adequate information about FEMA compliance of the properties that you value?
So there's adequate information and there's adequate evidence on that. If your house is FEMA compliant, there's a premium paid for those homes versus non-FEMA compliant houses. The sales reflect that. We reflected it in the revaluation. There's factors put into the assessment to reflect FEMA compliant homes versus non-FEMA compliant homes.
Thank you. Paulette, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I had a question about let's go back to the Creekside lots, if we may.
Sure.
Now, some of those lots, first of all, that a lot of them cannot be sold. They're part of the other parcel and they can't be separated and sold. So on those lots, is there any, consideration given to the fact that they're not really marketable properties? They're really getting a fair market value is difficult because they don't trade. So you can't really look at sales because they don't exist. Do we ever look at the fact that it's possible that these properties don't increase in value every year because they are what they are, but you can't do anything more with them?
Right. So if you look at those properties, you have to look at them as a whole. And unfortunately, like if I was doing, we also own an appraisal business. So if I was hired to do an appraisal on the house for like refinancing purposes, the two properties would be combined into one and one value would be given because that's how they would mortgage the house or they have to sell it. Unfortunately, for tax purposes, they're two lots and we have to come up with a value of the part. And the way that I looked at it is I said, okay, I have to come up with a value of the part for the whole. So I knew what sales transpired that have the whole, both beachside and creekside. And then I had to come up with, how do I divide that up? And what I said is, okay, creekside lots are selling for an average of $700,000 for a buildable lot. And I said, it's worth about 10% of the value for these pieces of property that have no other utility other than to park a car or to have a garage on it. And the garages were added as a building component. So I only took 10% of the land value. And then I attributed the rest of the land value to the other side of the property on the other side of the road.
So I guess I think that's confusing or a bone of contention with some of the homeowners because the previous values were maybe, say, for example, 32,000, and now they're 60,000, 70,000, 52,000. That's a big jump from the last time to now.
Well, if you look, the town of Fairfield, and there's been one sale down there. The town of
Right.
Fairfield sold a Creekside lot to an individual back in 2017 for, I think, 60,000, or hold on, I have it here.
Yeah,
It was
55,000.
55,000.
$55,000 back in 2017. So, and this is down in the FB7 zone, or the FB7 area at the end of the peninsula, which is also, yeah, on the creek side is PC4, but this is further, so I'm just giving you a location. It's kind of
Okay.
near the end of the road rather than in the middle or closer to the intersection of Reef Road, just so you know where I'm talking about. If you know where those blue houses are at the end of Fairfield Beach Road, this is
I know
one
where
of the little lots across the street.
Mhm.
And they sold that for 55,000 back in 2017. And you have to come up with a land value here. And I said it's worth 10% of what a building lot would be worth if it was valued on the creek side. This methodology is a sound methodology in appraisal. It's done all the time. We do it when we're doing DOT takings, or you're doing valuations for eminent domain, or you're doing valuations for partial interests of property. You have to come up with a percentage of the utility of the property. And because 90% of the utility of this property you can't build on, because of you can't build a house on it, you have to have some attributable utility to the house, to the property. So I came up with 10% of the value as if it was buildable, and that's what I used. And this is consistent with what the numbers were back in 2015. Those factors were at 10% in the prior reval. So we didn't really change anything. The only thing that changed was back in the prior reval in 2015, those creekside lots were not worth $700,000. They were worth $400,000 or $300,000. And when you look at the 10% value back then, it's $30,000. Today, those same lots are worth $700,000. So now that lot is worth around $70,000.
So then now, if that's the system that you use, the method that you use, I'm not questioning the system. So I have a different example to look at. So if that's the case there, then if there was another piece of property in a different neighborhood, similar situation where it's not saleable, really, or it like the town-owned piece, okay, it's not buildable. Let me say that. It's
So I
not
know the
buildable.
property you're talking about on Riverside Avenue that was
Yeah.
sold to Michael Meehan. It's a totally different type of property. It's not on the creek. It doesn't have water access. It's a total different 100% value of the property if it was buildable. If that lot was buildable in that neighborhood in Riverside Avenue, it wouldn't be worth what it's worth in this neighborhood. It's apples and oranges.
No, I understand that. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying it's worth 700,000. I guess what I'm asking is, does the same rule in some way apply where you take a lot that's buildable in that neighborhood, right on that street, basically, and you say, okay, this is, say, 10% of that, or 15%, depending on what you want to use. Like, how do you come up with a value like that? Is it done the same way as it's done on the beach? Not the same amount of money, but the same percentage or a value?
Well, it depends what the utility of the site is. A lot of times, and I could give you a different example that you might see a lot around town. And a lot of areas, especially up in Greenfield Hill, you'll get lots and they'll have wetlands on them. So you're making adjustments for the wetlands of 5 or 10%. Because that diminishes the utility of that lot or that property. This is the same thing. You're making an adjustment, although a quite larger 90%, because the utility, you can't build on it. It's no different than, it's the same methodology as if it had wetlands on it and you're only making a 5% deduction because of utility. So this
So,
methodology is used throughout the entire town. It's just in different degrees depending on what the utility of that lot is.
so it's not always the same percentage. So in other words, if a lot down there was 500,000, that piece of land on Riverside wouldn't be worth 50,000. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it depends what the utility of the lot was. If, you know,
Not buildable.
it's
It
not buildable, but it had how many square feet, is all the square footage usable? Can you build on it? Can you build part? I think that lot there was sold to the abutter, and he had wanted to use it to expand his property or do something else with it. So that sale, it's the utility of the property might be different than the utility of this Creekside property. This Creekside, you know, I live on the beach. I would love to buy a Creekside property to go along with mine, and you know, I would pay dearly for it because I would want the water access on the creek, or I would want additional parking. So, you know, it all goes down to the utility of these lots. And the utility of the lots on the Creekside have more utility than just as an extra piece of land for parking. On some of them, a lot of them have the water access.
Okay. I just think
Okay.
that, you know, I was just thinking that the sale of that piece on Riverside to a neighbor, that the utility of that property becomes quite valuable to the person who's buying it. If it increases, if it makes it easier for them to say, add on, because now they meet setbacks, they have the right number of square footage of land, things like that. So I think a property like that has value, maybe not the same value as a Creekside where you have water access, but I would certainly think that it has value to the person buying it, you know, more than just a $26,000 piece of property because of what it does to his property when it's joined, the utility of it. But that's just, you know, that's just the way I would think of it.
Right, and that piece of property, you know, the utility of it might, and I don't know what the, off the top of my head, what the values in the neighborhood are versus what the percentage that he sold it at. But just fictitiously, let's say it was a 5% of the total value, you know, the utility of the loss of not being able to add to the creek, and those things can make up the difference. I don't know if it had wetlands on it. I don't know, you know, if it was all buildable. I just don't know the particulars enough off the top of my head to comment on it. I just know about the sale.
This is Harold. Kathleen, did you have your hand up?
Yes, this is Kathleen. Mike, can you speak a little bit about Lund Court, Burr Court 1 and 2, Lighthouse Point, Lantern Point, how those are valued? We do have a fair number of appeals in that area. It looks like it's kind of whited out on Ross's on the map. And I just want you to speak. I know some of those are condos, some come with parking, some don't. Can you speak to how you value, you know, I think are they all condo complexes? And some of them might even be in the Reef Road neighborhood code 69 as opposed to 66. But I know we've had a couple of, we still have a few down there to deliberate on.
Sure. So
Yeah, this is Ron. Those are the condos don't have the neighborhood code like a residential property because we're not valuing land with a condo. It's part of the common interest of all the units. So that's why they're white.
This is Kathleen, though, but the field card has a physical neighborhood code on it, right? Is it just used to group the properties, but not for the value?
Yeah, this is Ross. I'd have to look at that because there are a couple of places where neighborhood codes are put in, but they're not all the same. I know that's a little confusing to say it that way, but the neighborhood code that you're all used to seeing and that we all talk about is on the landline. There is another place within where the land goes in, but it's not the same code. Typically they match, but it's not used for the same purpose as the code that you're just seeing. It doesn't drive value.
I think that that's one of the things about the CAMA, is something has to be in there, that field. It doesn't drive value on condos.
So this is Kathleen. So how do you value those condos then? How do you determine, these are more valuable than condos up on the post road or whatever, that the location must be in there somehow? And how did you come up with that?
So those condos are valued based on other condo sales there. The best sales are sales within the complex. I believe we had sales down there that sold over the last few years. We used those sales in the valuation of the condos. There was a land sale over there that Ganem purchased. It was landlocked. It was a tough site. They knocked the house down. I think they paid $650,000 or $700,000 for it, but it was a landlocked piece of property.
I believe that was on Lighthouse, right, Mike?
Yes.
So is Lighthouse Point different than Lantern Point, different than Burcourt? Are they, and where's the parking, and how does that all mix together?
I think Lighthouse Point is the name of that little alleyway, the name of the street, and Lantern Point is the name of the complex, the condo complex.
Got it.
No.
And this, Kathleen, we do have one other condo or a couple other condo complexes. I don't know if they're appealing or not. Down on the beach, there's a couple properties that are considered condos. How are those valued when they don't have any land value?
Right. So there's several houses along the beach that years ago they condominiumized these properties. What I did is I valued the property in its totality, and then I applied that value into the CAMA system, into the condo section of the CAMA system to arrive at the value of the property. Because you're looking at the overall value, because there is no land. Although there's land, there's no value separate for land in a condo.
All right, this is Harold. Any other comments or questions of Mr. Fazio?
I have one more.
Yes? Who's
It's
speaking?
Alexa speaking. I am off camera, so I will spare you that. Can you just define more the WP4 category?
Sure.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
So the WP4 category is similar to the PC4 category. They're
And can you just define that just for the layman people like me on this call, just so we all understand that, please?
So what WP4 is, that's the location factor within a neighborhood, and it drives value. So the PC4 factor is creekside properties that have water access, where you could there's water there at most of the time. The WP4 location, at low tide, it's mostly mud flats. You do not have water access for a boat all the time there. And as you move further or closer to Reef Road, there's less and less water access on those locations. So those creekside lots in WP4 are not as valuable as creekside lots as if they were in PC4.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments from the board members or anyone else? Yes, Paulette.
I'm just wondering, I'm not sure, but I wondered if any of the public submitted questions to have you guys ask.
Well, good question. Did they have an opportunity to do that?
I thought they did. That's why I'm asking if they did submit any.
This is Harold. I think we did cover a few of them. One I saw was regarding FEMA compliance. The other one is how lot size affects the values on the beach side and the creek side, and very small lots versus very large lots. Describe how parcels that sell together in one deed, but our two separate parcels are valued. How were they treated in the informal hearings? I don't know that we discussed the informal hearings portion of it, but I do have a question regarding the informal hearings. Was there any blanket consideration or reduction that was given to people that came in for the informal hearings relative to their property values, or was the entire Area 66 given a blanket reduction? Was anything like that considered or done?
So in neighborhood 66, which is what we've been talking about tonight, there was no blanket reduction given. However, there was a lot of individual adjustments made based on information given at the informal hearings, based, on incorrect data on the field card or other information that they supplied to us that reflected condition of the property or some other characteristic that they wanted us to take a look at. I personally myself did all these hearings, reviewed all these hearings and visited all the properties. So I was familiar with a lot of the concerns with the people who called on the informal hearings. And I did make a lot of adjustments to reflect, to try to reflect a lot of uniformity, especially on the Creekside properties. There was some properties that were not uniform in the factors that were applied to those. I corrected all those to make sure that if you had just a small little lot with the parking or just a garage on it, that you were only being charged at a 10% rate rather than the full, something larger than that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Alexis?
I just wanted to follow up on my last question about the WP4. Now, look, I've gotten a lot of emails from people that I know by the beach area. I know a lot of them. Now, from what I've heard, a lot of the WP4 do not have creek access. Do you still stand by that answer that you gave me?
Right, none of them have creek access. The
Okay.
the PC4 has creek access. The WP4 does not have creek access.
WP4, the properties do not have access to the creek, right?
Right, maybe a couple of them have,
clarify that.
maybe a couple of them do closer to the center of the road during
Which
high
ones?
tide.
Do you
But
know
the
which ones?
majority of them do not.
Okay.
Yes, Paulette.
I think it might be more than a few. I'm not a realtor, I'm not an appraiser, but I've gone by some of these properties, especially the beach area. Okay.
Most of them do not have creek access. I'm saying a few of them do that are closer to the center of the road where the creek turns into more of a mud flat.
Paulette, you had your hand up?
I just wanted to clarify because I get emails from people down at the beach too, and some other people in town, and I just want to understand the process a little better. I'm told by some of them that they did informal hearings, but they were talking to a data collector or a clerk, things like that. So did you have the opportunity to go back and look at those and reach out to them, or were they contacted by mail or email or some other way with someone who has more authority than the people that were taking the information that could give them information about what they were concerned about?
So, like I said on one of the past meetings that we had, I personally myself couldn't take every phone call for every hearing. It's physically impossible.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
what I did is we had people taking down the information. Everybody had the opportunity to send in things they wanted to be reviewed. What I did is I was the one who made the final judgment of what needed to be changed, what didn't need to be changed, based on the information that was supplied and the notes that were taken. I also then on some of them, took a ride out myself and looked at these things individually.
Okay.
Yes, I see your hand up. Judy?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, when you said that your own personal property assessment went down on Fairfield Beach Road, is that what happened? Yours, because did that happen? Was yours went down?
My property went down a few $1,000s. However, it's not at 100% yet because it's under construction, under a permit.
Okay, now I have another question. You mentioned that because you're doing this, the revow, that you had somebody actually came out to your house to assess your property, so you didn't personally do it, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, this
Were
is
the
Ross.
other, were the other
Excuse me, this is
taxpayers
Ross.
on
Listen,
Fairfield?
Excuse me. This is Ross. We've covered this in the public meeting that my office, my deputy assessor who does all the beach property, went out and reviewed Mike's house and coded it the way he would code any other house that he goes to.
That's
So
fine.
we've covered.
Okay, that's not my question. I would just like to finish my question. That's all. So,
Mr. Chairman, can you just make sure these questions are answered? Please. This is the Board of Assessment Appeals, and the assessor should not be weighing in on the questions that we ask. This is absurd.
I just got cut off. My
This is
question
inappropriate.
was, I just want to finish. I just want to finish. That's all. So
I hope you're allowed to
Mike had
finish.
Mike had somebody out to his house, and I understand he had somebody out to his house, so he wasn't doing his assessment. For the other homeowners, taxpayers on Fairfield Beach Road afforded that same ability for somebody to come out to their house and assess their house rather than go off an algorithm, which is what was done throughout town. Did they get the opportunity to be treated the same?
So this revaluation is a statistical, what the state calls a statistical revaluation, where properties are not visited. They're just valued based on the information the town has currently in the CAMA system.
But you were separated from that and you got preferential treatment.
Well, no, I didn't, because
This is Harold. This is Harold. Point of order. I think that I would allow the assessor to speak to the fact that
The assessor isn't a member of this board, Mr. Chairman.
I think we should vote. I think we should take a vote on that because he's not a member of the board and he doesn't deserve to weigh in.
Member of the board.
Right.
I would like to ask the assessor a procedural question.
He's not
And
a member of he's not a member of this board. He does not have any standing here, Mr. Chairman. Well, let's go to Robert's rules. We can call the town attorney if we want to do it that way, but this is really inappropriate.
all right, then I will make a statement. I believe that any taxpayer has the opportunity to ask the assessor's office for an inspection of their property. I'll just leave it at that. That's my understanding and my belief. Okay? So we also have the experience of looking at the completion percentage of any work that is being done on a property to determine if the valuation is correct based upon the amount of construction completion that is done on a property. And I believe that that is something that we also have the ability to do.
And that was the purpose of the visit. The purpose of the visit to my property was to see how much of the permit was completed as of October 1st, 2020.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I think I have one more.
Yes, Alexis, go ahead.
Thank you. and thank you again for the opportunity to speak. Can you just talk more? This is my original question. Can you just talk more, Mr. Fazia, about the codes, these neighborhood codes, and how they relate to the valuation that you give to homes? I'm just trying to understand them a little bit more.
Which neighborhood codes are you speaking of?
So we get neighborhood codes. Do you see the list of our?
Please enter your PIN followed by the pound or hash.
I'll give
If
you,
you
I
do
can,
not
I'm
know your
happy to
PIN, please enter pound or hash.
This is Harold. Is someone trying to call in?
Thank you.
Okay. This is Harold. Are you referring to neighborhood adjustments or condition codes
We have
or?
some new codes, like the Mill Hill area, that's number 70, University 73, Tungus Hills 90. I can go on. So how does that relate to the assessments that you give to the houses, to the neighborhoods?
So the neighborhood codes, depending on which neighborhood your property is located in, whether it's 66, 65, 40, 70, that's what drives land value. And to those codes, adjustments are also made in groups. For example, if you were in FB8, that's a group of properties. There's also individual adjustments made on the condition line. If you have individual characteristics of your property that are different than other properties in the neighborhood or your neighbor. For example, if you were located in had wetlands or located next to I-95 or located next to train tracks, then further adjustments are made based on those factors. So all these numbers.
Just because you just mentioned the train tracks, so that's a factor, you think, when it comes to valuations?
I think if your property is abutting the train tracks, that a factor was applied to your property.
Thank you. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just was curious. So I know that
And I
came up
think
in
that's
some of
the
valuations that we
condition.
were discussing.
Alexis, I think that's the condition factor that gets
Yes.
applied with that. And then I believe that each neighborhood has a standard adjustment factor, whether it's 1.7, 1.5, etc., but that's applied standardized based on the neighborhood code.
Thank you, John.
Yep.
You agree with Mr. Spoiler, who just said that? Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Paulette, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just was wondering if Mr. Fazio could explain that land curve down at the beach a little bit better. I'm not quite sure I understand it.
What part don't you understand? That the curve or how it works, or
How do you do it? Like, how do you come up with that curve, and what does it mean for values?
so the curve is based on the theory of the smaller the lot, the more you'll pay per unit. The larger the lot, the less you'll pay per unit. And that is what the curve is, because otherwise, if you had no curve, if you bought 1,000 square feet of land, you would pay the same amount as if you bought 1,000,000 square feet of land. You need some kind of curve, and the curve is kind of a size adjustment factor, if you want to put it into simpler terms. It's breakpoints in sizes.
Okay.
This is Harold, and I've looked at a calculation or a chart that was done measuring, looking at the value of land units from 240 square feet up to 5,050 square feet. And the price per square foot varies greatly, from over $100 a square foot on smaller lots down to a little over $16 a foot on the larger lots. And if you look at the value based upon that, the value runs a wide gambit, right? But the adjustments based upon the reduction in cost per square foot for the larger parcels of land kind of evens out to an average square foot that is right in the middle. I think it's the mean value that equates to all of these properties, so that the 5,050 square foot parcel of land is not 20 times the value of the 240 square foot parcel of land. And that's how the curve adjusts for the values of these parcels.
You're right.
Okay. Kathleen, you have your hand up?
I do. You touched a bit on the informal hearings, so I just want to go back to those you do the mass appraisal that everybody comes up with a number. You have the informal hearings. So when you review those individual properties, do you adjust them individually? And if so, how do you do that? Because the model came up with a certain number, right? And you realize this is too high, this is too low. You go in and you adjust that individual property, and if so, how do you do that on a field card, or how does that work?
So a lot of times people would send in information. In the past, prior to COVID, you'd be meeting with them face to face, and they would bring pictures in, or they would bring some kind of evidence. But what they had to do now is they sent the evidence in ahead of time to us, or they sent it to us after if they spoke about something that we didn't have. And they would send pictures saying, well, my house is excellent condition. Here's pictures of, rotted wood. Here's non-painted rooms. Here's deferred maintenance. I would take a look at the pictures. I would take a look at what we had on the physical characteristics. And if an adjustment needed to be made, we would make it. Other things that needed to be adjusted, let's say we said they had a pool and there was no pool, we would take the pool off. A lot of times it's a grade issue on how the house was graded. The beach area, I went out and took a look at all these to make sure that if somebody's value was incorrect, I wanted to make sure at least the grade was correct, because the only ways really to change value would be if there was a physical problem with the land, i.e. being, some inability to, impairment to building on all of it, like if there was wetlands, or you had some kind of poor topography, or some area that was unusable, then an adjustment had to be made to the land. If you were located next to, high tension wire was running through the middle of your property, there was some physical influence on the property. But the majority of them are influences on the building or the characteristics that we don't have correct on the field card, and we tried to make those adjustments based on the information that was sent to us. For example, if you had, we said the field card said there was a finished basement, there was no finished basement. People would take pictures, or we would do a video conference where they'd be able to show us what they actually had, and at that point we would make the adjustment on the field card, and that would change the value. Or condition is another one. Grade was another factor that you could make adjustments with. If there was no adjustments to be made, and there was no evidence given to us that the value was incorrect, then those were not offered any adjustment in the assessment.
If somebody presented you with an appraisal, oh, I'm sorry. If someone brought you an appraisal and they said, look, here's the market value of my home, it wasn't a condition adjustment, this and that, how did you adjust when you received an appraisal? Or you still did it, you changed conditions based on the appraisal?
Well, so when people sent me an appraisal, what I did is I reviewed the appraisal to make sure that the appraiser, A, used proper sales, and B, adjusted to sales properly. You know, a lot of times I recall off the top of my head, I looked at an appraisal that was given to me on Fairfield Beach Road. They brought the house in for $650,000 on this appraisal that was made for the Board of Assessment, not Board of Assessment, for the informal hearing. And they omitted the best sale next door that sold for $1,250,000. And, you know, when I was reviewing the appraisal, I actually called the appraiser up. I said, did you know about the sale that was next door and why did you omit it? And he said he didn't know about it and that's why it wasn't included in the appraisal report. So, you know, you have to review the appraisals to make sure the information in the appraisals is the best sales. I looked at appraisals that were in one, you know, down in the beach area, not in the Sherman area. They were using sales that were on the other side of town. Now you had adequate sales in the beach area. Why didn't you use those sales? So, and if the appraisal had information in it that was contrary to the information we had in the field card, a lot of times the appraisals had interior pictures of the houses. We were able to look at that for condition and grade factors, so adjustments could be made there. So the appraisals offered a lot of information, but every time you get an appraisal, it doesn't mean that the appraisal is 100% credible. You have to look at all the information that you have also and compare it to that appraisal.
Paulette, I see your hand up.
I can't hear.
You might be muted, Paulette.
No, I can't hear either.
What I was going to say was I agree with Mr. Fazio about the appraisals. They should be looked at, they should be evaluated. But he owns an appraisal company, and so he's qualified to do that. He's got the expertise to do it. On the Board of Assessment Appeals, who's really qualified? Who would you say is qualified to do that? Would you say everybody, or would you say people who deal with the appraisals?
I'm going to call a point of order. I don't think that that's pertinent to our discussion here. Because
I'm sorry.
The Board of Assessment Appeal, point of order.
Going with that
I'm
Board
not
of
allowing you to proceed. I'm not
on this.
allowing you to proceed.
You don't like.
You
Can't do that.
you should not cast any doubt on the ability to make its judgments.
For the love of God, can I just finish the
Point of
question?
order.
I'm asking him.
Point of
He's
order.
an expert. He's an expert. I'm asking an expert opinion of how
We-
that should be done by the
We
board.
all have, point of order, Paulette, let me speak. We all have the ability to read. We all have the ability to use our mental capabilities. We use many of the same processes that the MVS used in doing the informal hearings. We look at comps, we look at condition factors, we have had hearings with people, we've gathered information, we've taken notes, we deliberate as a board and take all of the information into consideration. Expertise in one area does not preclude our ability to make judgments.
The BAA handbook clearly says the person with the expertise in that field, or the one who knows it the most, is the one who should be evaluating. Not that you can't vote, not that you don't have input, but that person should be looking at it and examining it.
That is not the only thing that it says in the handbook.
That's what it says in the end of that paragraph about it. Yes, it says we should, and I'm agreeing with Mr. Fazio. I'm not arguing. I'm stating the fact that yes, he's right. We should look at them. Everybody should look at them. What I was asking him as an expert is, wouldn't it be prudent for someone who understands it best, because they do it all the time, to really have a quick look at it and say, these are acceptable, then we can discuss them. We've dismissed many appraisals, and I don't think it's right unless we know. I don't think it's fair, and I don't think it's right. So I'm asking an opinion of a professional and an expert what he thinks. That's all I'm asking, and I have the right to ask that. And this is twice today that you've cut us off and we've asked a question that you don't like, and that's not fair.
So to answer your question, it's simple. As a board, you've lived in town, you know the areas of town, you probably now know most of the sales in town. If you see an appraisal, and it's all a lot of common sense, if you see an appraisal and they're using comps that are not in the same neighborhood, and it looks like they're trying to drive the value down, you know, artificially, then it's not a credible appraisal. If they're using comps and the houses all look similar in the pictures and they're all around the corner from one another, it's probably a credible appraisal. There's an abundance of sales in Fairfield. Any appraiser who's doing an appraisal, you know, the sales that they're using should be rather close to where the subject property is and should include houses that are somewhat similar. That's not to say that a colonial has to be only compared to a colonial. If a colonial is 3,500 square foot and it's compared to, you know, a raised ranch that's 3,500 square feet, and they both look in the same condition and the same grade, and they're all located on the same street, typically those houses are going to sell very close to one another. You know, the real estate market isn't perfect. Would they sell exactly the same? No, because, you know, the real estate market's not a perfect. There's some emotion when purchasing real estate that's involved. But, you know, I think as a board, you've all become experts in looking at appraisal reports and somewhat of value at this point. And you could look at the reports and see which ones are credible and not credible, you know, on the face value. If it's an old report from 2017 or 2018, it probably is a little undervalued based on 2020 numbers.
Ronique, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mike. It's been brought up about us looking at appraisals, and I agree with you. I think we have the ability to look at them and kind of look at flaws that we've seen so many appraisals in the past. But my question is actually not pertaining to appraisals. My question is actually going to be pertaining to purchase price. So if someone has purchased a house close enough to the October 1, 2020 line, would you look at that versus an appraisal, or versus what we have it as appraised as a town? Like, is purchase price a true indication of the market if it's close enough to the October date? And also, what do you think is close enough to an October date?
So I know and I'll take it from doing tax appeals in court, and when we testify in court, what is acceptable to use sales. I would use sales even after the fact that are, you know, 4 months, 5 months after, because a lot of those properties were marketed at the time of the reval or went into contract or exposed to the market at that time. The other thing is the sales price reflective of the market? If the property was listed on the MLS, if the property wasn't under undue duress for sale, for like a divorce transaction or a foreclosure transaction or a short sale, then the property was most likely an arm's length market transaction. If it was a private sale between two people and it looked a little odd, most likely, you know, there's a story behind it. So you have to look at those a little closer.
And, oh, sorry, this is Ronique again. So, I mean, if someone is, and not instead of looking at sales prices on an appraisal, if someone just purchased a house, say, for example, August 2020, and they purchased that exact house and they're requesting for a value, or appraised value of that price, what are your thoughts on bringing it down to that price? Like, say, for example, they put the house on listed for sale and they didn't sell for that amount and it sold for lower, and then they're requesting for an appraised value of October or August 1, 2020. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Right. So, and I kind of understand what you're trying to get. Let's say, and I'm using round numbers, let's say the model put out a value of $1 million on a house. And in reality, it's sold for $990,000. And they're coming in for a tax appeal on that, saying, well, listen, I only paid $990 and you have it at $1 million. I want a $10,000 reduction. When you're doing a reval, you can't chase every sale to make sure it comes in exactly the same because you won't pass state testing. So it's within a threshold of close enough to the value that the model has concluded that I would make no change to that. And that goes the other way too. If they paid $1 million, but the model said 990, I wouldn't raise their house to $1 million. It's close enough. And when you ask how much is close enough, it's a judgment. I would say, if you're 15% or less to the sales price, your model, and that's what the state looks at 15% is its threshold to qualify the reval. I think that's a good indicator.
That was exactly my next question. Thank you.
All right. I think that we've covered a lot of territory here. The board this year has gone quite far to provide clarification to the public, and we've taken a lot of the information available to us to make our determinations and help us with our deliberations. I want to thank you for participating, Mike, in today's meeting, because I think it did clarify a lot of information for not only the board, but for the public as well. And certainly we've added a lot of information to the BAA website, including the map that we discussed earlier. And there's a lot of other information, codes that are being used and so on. So I encourage anyone who has questions about that to go to the BAA website and take advantage of the hard work that we put into making this information available. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Alexis?
I actually had one more. Yeah, thank you. I had one more question. Mr. Fazio,
All right,
you'll indulge me.
let's not tie up our whole meeting with this, but go ahead.
Well, I think these are important questions that the public,
I know.
they're on the line, they want to know.
Yes.
They're entitled, they're the taxpayer, that's who we represent.
Absolutely.
Do you find the neighborhood codes helpful to you when determining evaluation?
Well, the neighborhood.
I'm still trying to grok all this because I'm still just trying to understand these neighborhood codes. So do they help you to guide your appraisal? Like,
without the coding of neighborhoods, and you got to forget about the names on neighborhoods. You have to look at the number. The number has a factor that's applied to it, which against the land curve creates the value of the land in that area of town. So theoretically, if a lot is worth $500,000, that code derives that value for that location of $500,000. That's all it's doing. It doesn't, it's not like you're saying, oh, one section's Mill Hill, one's Stratfield. When you give those names, it's just to point you in your eyes in the direction of the area where you could find this code. So if I say, okay, Stratfield is neighborhood 30, you'll know, okay, I know where Stratfield is. It's on the east side of town. I could look over there for neighborhood 30. But neighborhood 30 will have a factor which might be like 1.1. That 1.1 gets applied to the land curve, which derives the underlying base value of the entire reval. You have to start with valuing land. So all those codes creates the land values.
thank you.
Okay.
Okay. So I'd like to end this portion of our agenda. And again, thank Mike Fazio for participating. And, if there are any questions, as we have been doing, any questions that are brought before the board, we will endeavor to get answers, whether they're from board members or the public. So thank you, Mike.
All right, you're welcome. And I'm here if you need something else or confused again about anything else or clarification is needed.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate all the work
Thank
you do.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
So I would like to confirm that we have a quorum to continue with our deliberations.
I'm gonna drop. So,
Yeah,
About 10 minutes. I need about 10 minutes and I'll come back.
okay, why don't we take a 10-minute break and meet again at 5 after 8,
Okay.
all right?
Thank you.
I'm here, Harold. I'm just having a little dinner or whatever. So
Okay.
I'm turning the camera off.
I see that Peter has come back. We didn't scare him away.
Peter, I have you and Alexis for the most part. You guys are just tonight, tomorrow night. So I was trying to get you in good shape if we can.
Yeah, I noticed some of the supporting materials are not in my packet for Woodrow Avenue. So we'll have to fix that.
This is
Because-
Kathleen Ross. If you're there, can you look at that? Maybe he's not there.
Oh,
Because Mr. Ruda gave me a lot of supporting material, so that needs to be part of the case.
Alexis, hi, this is Harold. I see that you have 4 appeals that we were going to review, number 9, 264, 326, and 150. Are any of those able to be brought before the board?
Yeah.
Are we gonna do the ones in red first?
We can, although I didn't print it out in red. But
Oh, yours is 597, Harold.
yes, I do have one that I'm ready to do.
Okay,
And
but this Kathleen, I do want Alexis and Peter to get through theirs tonight and tomorrow night. That's like, if we have no other goal. we do
Well,
need-
Kathleen, my supporting data isn't here, so I really can't do much without that, okay?
For Woodrow, right? Is that the only one that you don't have it
Well,
for?
I could look for a few more, so.
Okay. Or if Peter's ready, or Harold, if you want to do your one, that's fine too.
Okay.
Whatever. Just trying
I'm
to
ready
make
to go.
progress.
I'm ready to go, Harold, if you want me to go. I'm ready to
Yeah,
go.
I can get that off my plate.
Okay, go
Okay.
ahead.
Because I've been working on this. Appeal number 597. The address is 2788 Black Rock Turnpike. And the owner is Mr. Wagenroth, Christopher Wagenroth. And I make a motion to grant the requested amount on the appeal of $350,000. Do I have a second? I have a second from Judy. Okay. The appellant came in to meet with me and had several issues. There's a letter in the file stating several of them. He also had a question about the assessment for his generator, and then talked about groundwater displacement, and that engineers have come in to inspect it. And I checked with the engineering department. I checked with Mr. Good God, my brain isn't working. Mr.
This is Veronique. Harold, what was that appeal number one more time? I'm so sorry.
597. I checked with
Thank you.
Mr. Hurley and I asked him if he would please do an inspection of the property. He did go down to the property just the other day. It wasn't right after rain, but he said the ground is wet. The appellant says that he has 3 sump pumps working all the time, burning up a lot of electricity, adding to his bill, and that Mr. Hurley did indicate that there are several houses along that stretch of the road where there's a very steep hillside in the backyard, and the runoff is keeping the land wet. And I don't know if this appellant suffers more than the others, but he said that several of the houses have that problem. They do have the same condition factor of 0.9, but mostly for traffic being on Black Rock. but I looked at some of the other properties and I saw that they are in similar location. But the first thing we did was I asked the assessor's office to remove the generator, and he did reduce the town's value from the 452,900 to 442,900. I don't know if that change was made to the card yet, and if there's something we need to vote on to recognize that, we can vote on that first. But given the fact that Mr. Hurley did indicate that the land was wet, and I did see a house that was sold back in August of 20 at 2858 Black Rock, and that sold for $415,000. It was a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath. Mr. Wagenroth's property is 3.2. And I feel that he's not out of line, given that his property value is similar to the others, and even the house that sold for $415,000, that property was twice as big as his, more than twice as big as his. So I'm inclined, if you wanted to look through the file some more, inclined to grant this, but again, if we need to vote first for the adjustment for the removal of the generator, I'm prepared to do that. Or we can just grant the appeal to the requested value.
This is,
Ronnie?
so if we vote to make the change for the generator, no, I'm sorry. If we just approve their appeal, does the change to the generator also happen, or do we also vote on that?
No, the generator is coming off the card already.
Okay.
That was granted by the assessor's office. So I believe that we would just be granting the requested appeal. Kathleen?
So this is Kathleen. So if you wanted to come off the 2020 grand list, we have to approve it, but we could say that it's part of the other reduction if we want. But we usually have been doing what we call card corrections first, and then voting on the appeal second. That's the process we've been using. I know it's a little cumbersome, but sometimes we don't grant the appeal. And so that's kind of, that's the process we've been doing with card corrections. But
yeah, I thought so. I wasn't, so I was like, wait.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I know it's cumbersome. It's just, like I said, sometimes we grant the appeal, sometimes we don't. When we don't, they can come back. So we want to give them that opportunity. A card correction doesn't kick them out, right? That's not really an appeal for other reasons. That's just a card correction. So in this case,
I think it's appropriate, this is Harold speaking, that we will make a amended motion to change the town's value from the $452,900 to the $442,900. Do I have a second? Judy seconds. All those in favor of granting the amendment to reduce, please raise your hand. Okay, it's
well, this is Kathy. Harold, it's not an amendment, it's a separate motion. We just handle it as a card correction motion. So we'll just do, it's late in the night. So we'll get that one out of the way. Okay.
All right, since you're keeping the minutes.
Trying.
It'll be helpful to you too, so,
yeah. Now the next motion, it's a separate motion. Item number 2 is to take it from the, what is it, 442,900?
442,900 to the requested amount of $350,000.
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor, raise your hand. I have 1, 2, 3, 4,
I'm in favor.
5. Alexis, are you there?
I'm here and I'm in favor.
Okay, I have 6 in favor. Opposed? 1 opposed. The motion is granted. 6 in favor, 1 opposed, and the opposed is Peter. Thank you. That clears my deck.
finishes that neighborhood code for you as well. So that's good.
And I think also that a change should be made to the card by the assessor's office to indicate wetlands in the yard, in the backyard.
Okay,
Before you go, Peter, I'm hopping off. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next time, Thursday, I think.
Thank you, Monique.
Good night, Monique.
Want to see that bow tie when you come back?
Yeah, definitely. Bye.
okay, this is appeal number 48. It's 100 Mill River Road. The owner is Constantine Benares and his wife. It is the town's valued this property at $819,500, and the requested value is $700,000. All right. I would like to make a motion to grant the requested value of $700,000. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Judy.
All right, thank you, Judy. Okay, so this is a property that was purchased in 2016 for $600,000. It's a 1954 Colonial. It's on 1.14 acres and has about 2,600 square feet. Four bedrooms, 2.5 baths. It does have a 10% adjustment for wet and topography, and it does have depreciation on it of about 38%. All right, and so just some of the things that that this is a the owner is saying that the appellant is saying that the subject is in a wetland, claiming that it's very wet there, feeling that the appraisal didn't take, he did have an appraisal done, but he feels like the appraisal didn't take into account the wetlands. And, I don't believe, as I read through the appraisal, that the wetlands were even mentioned in there. All right, but he says that he's on, he's in the FEMA website are on in the wetlands by FEMA. So I don't know, Ross, is that something you can pull up right now just to confirm for us?
I'm sorry, Peter, were you looking for something?
Yeah, I was asking Ross if he could, is it possible, is Ross on right now? Maybe he's not on.
I see that he's muted. I don't know that he's on.
Okay, all right, well, if he gets on, because I have a whole bunch of comps to go through, so if he comes on, we can talk about it. I mean, it's, the appellant says it's not been, the home has not been updated. He still has some, places where he has cloth wiring. The kitchen was, I guess, redone in like 1975. Just, mainly he was talking about, that issue of not really been updated, but also the wetness of his property. All right. So he provided, first of all, I'll go through quickly the comps that were provided in the assessment, or I'm sorry, the appraisal, which came back at 740,000. That's on page 21. So he had adjusted, just giving you, I'll give you a quick rundown of the adjusted values. 63 Centerbrook, there was an adjustment there that brought that property up to 790, 600. He had another one from 122 Limerick, which brought the property, that property value to 752, 950. 120 Orchard Hill brought the property value to 740, 690. The 1509 Brookside, that the adjustments there brought the property to 716,450. Brook Lane, 243 Brook Lane, those adjustments brought the property to 677,540. And all those actually were within the base period. This one was a 619 sale, and it was on Steiner, 278 Steiner Street, which was for 677,770. So the appellant provided a ton of other comps that he wanted me to take a look at. All right, so I guess most of them are in the sale period. Yeah, the base period, as far as I know. So I guess I'll go through them. So Ross is. Let's just take a quick look at this.
Peter, what did you want Russ to look at?
So I just want to know what, so this gentleman, this appellant, is saying that his land has a lot of wetlands on it, and that it's very wet. So is that something that you could show us on here?
Can you give us the address again, Peter?
Yeah, sure. It's 100 Mill River Road. 100
Oh,
Mill
yeah,
River.
it's a very environmentally sensitive area. Sure.
Oh, wait a minute. So here's the guy. He told you in part of this appeal, he shows that he got a change in his assessment because of the wetlands. I mean, I don't know he's under oath when he does this. He says there's wetlands. Here's my thought is he's got the appraisal for 740. That appraiser didn't mention anything about the wetlands, but he's got documentation that he does because from the court. So what? You're shaking your head.
Well, I don't know what I'm trying to present the case. Right, remember,
I think he's right there. I think he's right there. I think it's a very reasonable request. He's got the documentation to back it up.
I mean, have you been down that street? There's tons of wetlands there.
I feel differently. I think that 700,000 is not really an appropriate level to go to, but I'd like to see the map because, as I said, it wasn't covered in there. So, thanks for that input. All right, so Ross, this is his property, and those are all wetlands. Okay, so he does have a significant amount of wetlands on his property.
It's right on the Mill River. So, yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so, I mean, do you want me to go through the comps? I'd be happy to go through the comps that he's provided. I mean, the comps that he provided in the appraisal I don't think make his case. So,
No, Peter, this is Kathleen. I don't like the list that he provided. Oyster Road, Toilsome, those are his own comps, right? Toilsome
right,
Hill Road,
exactly. Many of them are.
Oriole Lane. Those are not comps for that particular part of town. So I don't know that he did himself any, favor
Kathleen, we look,
adding that list.
we look at comps at other parts of town all the time. I don't know why we're punishing this man. We've looked at comps at. I had a case last week where we looked at comps of other side of town. Like, I'm not. This rationale here is very disjointed. I'm getting a little frustrated by it.
That's not really true, Alexis. We haven't been doing that. We
Actually,
don't
we did, Peter, and I can bring that up.
Maybe a rare circumstance, but not. It's not a common feature.
This is Harold. I don't think we're trying to punish anyone, first of all. And I don't think we're trying to punish anyone. I think that the town has established a value and we're trying to determine whether that value is correct. So I don't think we're looking to punish or penalize anybody. That is not our objective.
I hope not, Harold. Because I feel like people bring in comps all the time. I had someone last week who was denied, and they said, I brought in 6 comps, and the board still denied them. Like, I'm just, it's very frustrating for the taxpayer to deal with this.
Yeah, so this is Kathleen. So he also has he has the bank appraisal, and he does have some that are, I don't know where Steiner is, and that's an older one, but Brookside Drive is not too far from where he is. I think Hillbrook is probably in a similar location. That's his bank appraisal, right? So those are more local to this particular one. Limerick, we've seen that sale a couple times the other night. We saw one on Limerick. Maybe it's a different one. I don't know where Centerbrook is. I know where Orchard Hill Lane is. So I think those are, you know, that the ones in his appraisal are a little are better than the ones he listed. That's my opinion.
This is Paul. Before we go on, I just want to clarify something. He may have wetlands on his property, and that's what he says he has. However, if you look at the flood map, he's in a floodplain. It's not so much the wetlands. He's in the 500-year floodplain. Now, it's only half of the property, but it's the back half. So he would be restricted in what he can do. And again, not just because he's in a floodplain, because now his house is in too much flood. So I think we have to look at that as well. The map he gave us is really showing, he says it's wetlands. This is really showing a floodplain area. And so
100-year floodplain. Yep.
So we have a different issue than he's actually bringing up. He just misstated it, but he is telling us that there's an issue on the property. And I think we have to consider that it is a floodplain issue, which is worse than, which would make up the value less than if it really was wetlands. That's all.
Okay, well, I mean, if we're ready to vote, I'll go ahead. And
Go ahead, Peter.
I'm sorry, this is Kathleen. What was the value of the appraisal? 740?
740.
Yeah, however, that appraisal did not take into account the wetlands or the floodplain. And he had a previous appeal that was accepted in 2017 due to that.
Yeah, I saw that. And maybe that's when he got his adjustment for the wet in the back. That might have been when he got the 0.9 on his property, was from that appeal. We don't know that, but Brookside might be wet as well. That's, that could be another wet property.
There are wet properties on Brookside. I don't know, I'd have to look that one up specifically, but there is a wet issue. There's a floodplain issue on Brookside. He's right there.
Yeah, no, I know. The Mill River goes in the back there, right?
Yep.
On Brookside?
Yes.
I thought it was St. Morgan. I don't know if that's Mill River.
That is Mill River. It's
right
in a lot of Brookside Drive.
Okay.
From
I know St. Morgan goes into Mill. Okay, got it.
This is Harold. I mean, the comps that he's presented appear to be in the price range of his home. Do we feel that any of them are good comps?
Let's see. A lot of them on the other side of town, so I don't think I would give those any weight. But Fife, Sturgis, those are not that far from him. And again, the appraisal, the licensed appraiser's appraisal has comps that are more in line with his neighborhood. Limerick, Orchard Hill, Centerbrook's kind of far away.
This is Kathleen. That's what I said. I feel like those are better unless Centerbrook has wetland issues. But Centerbrook over on Villa Avenue, not sure where that is.
Off of Reed Street.
I'm sorry, off of what? Wayne?
Reed. North Benson to Reed, and Centerbrook is down in there.
Yeah. Okay. And this is Kathleen. He did pay $600 in 2016. So maybe he appealed it after he purchased it as well. That could have been another reason. So I like the appraisal number better than his own number. That's me.
This is Harold. And the appraisal number came in at what? 740, did you say?
740, yes.
Okay. Let me flip this around so I can read it. Any further discussion? Are we ready to vote?
I'm ready. I'd like to make a a motion to amend the original motion. So just remind me one more time, do I have to withdraw the original or just make the amended? Just make the amendment. Okay.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the requested value or the value to $740,000. Do I have a second? All right, Harold.
Harold seconds.
All right. And
All those in favor of granting the amended motion to value of $740,000, please raise your hand. I have 1, 2, 3 in favor. All those opposed, raise your hand. I have 1 opposed. Abstentions?
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it. I'm in favor.
The only question I have is that I still think the 740 is high. You know, I'm battling with that. So somebody help me with that. I still think the 740 is high. I mean, if that's all we can give him, I mean, I still think his 700 is good because the 740 didn't take into account the property, that it was wet, floodplain, did not take that into account. So that
was already accounted for and it's already indicated on the card, and there's a reduction in the property for that
appraisal didn't mention it. That's why. So because the appraisal didn't mention it, and that's what he said, it wasn't in the appraisal. That's why I think the appraisal is still on the high side.
But perhaps the appraiser noticed it in the town record.
I know he didn't make a note, but you know, he deserves something if that's the only way we're going to get it passed. To, you know, to.
Want to do a revote? Okay, I understand your comments, Judy. They're taken, but the motion is on the table. All those in favor of granting this appeal to $740,000?
I'm sorry, Harold, 1 second. What was the vote on the amendment? It was 4-1. Judy, did you abstain or did you vote yes or no to the amendment?
I voted yes for the amendment.
Oh, so 5-1, and Alexis voted against it, right? Is that right?
That's my understanding that.
Okay, 5-1-0.
How did Paulette vote?
She voted for, I believe, yes, that she announced.
Voting for it, looking at the field card, trying to find out where it shows that there's a reduction for the. Can somebody help me?
0.9 on the field card for wetlands. It's what I saw.
But it's not wetlands, it's a floodplain. So does that, I just want to know if that makes a difference in the.
That's an AE zone, isn't it?
500. Yeah, can somebody
look and see, you know, what the neighbors have, and if the neighbors have something similar. There's a couple that are worse.
The exact same flood issue that he does. That's the thing with the flood line. It's not straight, it's not a straight line. It weaves. So in fact, I'm looking at the thing now, and his neighbor is mostly in a non-flood zone, with just the tip of the corner of their property in a flood zone. And it doesn't involve the house. His does. That would mean his house, the neighbor's property, the neighbor's house renovations or anything under the house is not affected by that floodplain. It doesn't structure doesn't fall in it, but his does. So,
well, his house does not fall. His house does not fall in the flood zone.
I don't see that.
Looking at a picture of it on a map, and half his house, the back half of his house.
Well, he claimed it. He claimed it. He said the house doesn't sit in the flood zone.
Well, I'm looking at the flood map from FEMA, and it says it does. I don't know. I don't think he understands that he's in a floodplain because he's calling it wetlands, and it's really a flood zone. It isn't really wetlands.
Well, actually, I'm going to correct myself here because it does mention the flood zone on page 30.
Is that okay? On
Okay.
page 30.
All right.
I'm not arguing. All I just want to make sure was that the field card represents the fact that he's in a floodplain, and if that differs from being in the wetlands, like that condition factor, does it change because it's flood over wetlands, or is it the same for both? That's really all I wanted to know.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody could answer that? Maybe Ross.
Ross, are you there?
This is Kathleen, because there's the pink, there's the gray, and there's two different greens, right? Like his neighbor to the southeast there, that green goes right through his house,
Well, if when I'm looking
right?
at the,
Looking
yeah.
at the map that Ross is sharing, that house actually is in the green. So this gentleman has it in his backyard in some ways, but doesn't go all the way up to his house. The other people, those two other properties to the south and east of him have it almost up to their homes. They both have 0.9s on their property.
Okay, but I'm not so concerned about what they have on theirs because I don't know that it's right. So I'm just asking Ross if it was wetlands versus floodplain, is the 0.9 factor the same for both? If it is, that's fine. If not, then I want to know if that can be adjusted for the floodplain. That's all.
This is Ross. We don't have standardized, you know, if it's a flood, it's X. If it's wet, it's X. We look at each property individually, and, you know, the past and the notations are all going to say wet. They're not going to say flood zone versus wetlands. They're just all going to be wet.
This is Harold. I think also if you look at the pictures on page 33, you can see the back of the house is a raised deck, steps going down, and then the photos that follow on page 34, rear view, you can see that there's a long, well, relatively long lawn that goes down to the back. So the house is relatively protected from a flood or wetland area, but since it is sitting up higher than the land behind it, and you can understand that there may be some wetlands behind the house. Just from observing the photos.
Yeah, this is Ross. I have the GIS up on the you know, shared, so you can see the FEMA and the conservation line.
What am I looking at here? Okay.
So this is how, Ross, the blue line indicates what?
Yeah, the heavy line, let me see if I can get there.
Yeah, the heavy blue line that runs through the property in the backyard.
Yeah, that is that's the boundary, the conservation, I'm blanking on the term, but that's the boundary of the conservation easement.
Okay.
Setback, is that the word? Setback?
Setback, that's it. That's what I wanted.
Yeah, that doesn't go, the blue line doesn't go through his house either, so.
That's interesting because I was just asking this from somebody else. On the map that we use, which is supposed to be the correct flood map, it's a yellow line, it's a yellow section for us that indicates the floodplain, and it goes right through his house. So I don't know which is right. Unfortunately, I can't show you what it looks like, but I could text it to somebody if they want to see it. But you know, whatever.
I'd love to see it.
What?
I'd love to see it.
Okay, well, let me text it to you. Judy?
Ross, can you zoom in on that?
Kathleen, Paulette, it should be added to the file. Let's add it to the file because it's coming up in public comment. So it needs to be, you know, in board discussion. So it needs to be shared with the public. So
a decent shot of it.
Yeah, if you can send it to Ross too, we'll have it added to the file.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, then just email it and CC me so I could see it. That'd be great.
The CC the whole board, yeah.
Okay. Actually, I'm first going to send it. Kathleen, I'm going to text it to you first because I'm not sure that I have that set up in my computer for the whole board. I think I can do it, but I'm not positive. So
this is Kathleen. Yes, if you do BAA@fairfieldct.org, it will go to everybody. But if you text it to me, I can email it.
Yep, I got it.
Okay.
I sent it to you already, but I'll send it now to the BAA thing. Full size, good to go. Okay, it should be coming through any minute.
So this is Harold. Are we in agreement that the wetlands is identified and recognized by the town?
I guess so. If Ross said that's how it's done, then I guess so, yeah.
Do we feel that there's further condition issues that need to be addressed?
This is Kathleen. I mean, we already voted on an amended motion, so I mean, I personally don't. I think the 0.9 is okay. I think, he's got a walkout basement and he's got, it slopes down in the back there, and the blue line is pretty far away. It's not through his house. The green lines are not. I think,
So,
it's a nice neighborhood. I think.
so this is Harold. So are we looking to gather more information for a second amendment? I think not. I think this is for edification because.
Oh, wow. Yeah, look at that, Paulette.
I know. So I don't
Where
know.
did you get your map? Where is that from?
Less. Pull up public record, click on the map, and then hit the flood layer, and it'll show it to you.
Wow.
All right. Harold, are we going to, are you calling for a vote on the amended motion?
Yes, I would like to call for a vote. I think we've looked at these images and we can vote. So all those in favor of granting the appeal to the amended amount of $740,000, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Paulette?
Yes.
6. The appeal is granted in the amount of $740,000. Thank you, Peter. It's unanimous.
I've got time for one more, and then that's it.
All right. Thank you, Judy. And I'm sorry that I let so much time go by, but I want to give everybody a chance to speak.
You're the best, Harold. Really appreciate you very much.
I'm not, maybe
And
not.
you called a point of order on me. I still appreciate you.
Oh, you got.
We're just a talkative group, but you can't help it.
Okay. One more.
All right.
Peter, do you have another?
We'll still have a quorum.
I have appeal number 239. This is 179 Mill River Road. The owners are Gwyneth and Robert Claiborne. The appellant was Robert Claiborne. The town has valued the property at $923,700, and they're requesting a value of $832,000. I make a motion to grant their requested value of $832,000. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Alexis, thank you. All right, I just need to get this up on my screen. All right, so these appellants, they say they've lived here for 30 years, retired. This is a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath colonial on 1 acre of land, a little over 1 acre of land, about 3,109 square feet. All right, it has about 28% depreciation on it at a factor of 5. So, all right, just keep that in mind. They said they purchased this in 2003, no sewer or town water. They don't have a pool. This is above the Mill River, so it's between Brookside and Duck Farm. They feel that the town value is too high. They had a third-party appraisal, and they provided 6 comps, and I'll go through those right now. they just, feel like the pandemic has artificially inflated the prices, the price of their home, the value of their home. So, all right. So the comps they used, 84 Wagon Hill Road. All right. And this had an adjusted value of $809,500. That was a colonial as well. A lot less land, similar square footage. 1351 Brookside Drive. That had ended up with an adjusted value of $852,800. About the same acreage and about 700 square feet less living area. 31 Hirsch Road. That was adjusted to $875,400, and that's has about twice the the subject has about twice the acreage, and about similar. A little smaller. The subject is a little smaller, coming in about 300 square feet smaller. 405 Hill Farm Road. This has an adjusted value of $904,800, and this was one about the same acreage, same similar in size. This one does have a 0.9 adjustment for wetlands easement. Also, it is in another neighborhood. It's in neighborhood 54, so there is a different. There's 0.9 adjustment versus the 1.7 of the other ones here. 180 Hillbrook Lane. All right, that has an adjusted value of $781,700, and again, this is in that neighborhood 54, so a different adjustment factor of 0.9, and finally 1509 Brookside Drive, and that has similar acreage, a little about 500 square feet smaller, and that came in with an adjusted value of $768,500. He's requesting, or they're requesting, the appellants are requesting a value of $832. I
What's your feeling, Peter?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like 832 is too low. I feel like 832 is too low. But I could see, a case being made for this. So I'll take any feedback on that.
Hey, Peter, I'm sorry. Alexis, can you just give me the number again on the house?
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's the house number is 179 Mill River Road.
Very good. Thank you.
And this is Harold. We've had some other houses on Mill River Road. Any come to mind as comps?
Kathleen, the one we just did was Mill River Road, wasn't it? The one on the floodplain there. Was
Correct.
that Mill River Road?
Right.
That's why it sounds so familiar.
The farthest comp away from this house included in this appraisal was 0.77 miles, so 3/4 of a mile away. This is what the appraiser came out with. I am very comfortable with the appraised value. I don't see why we have to dissect it anymore. It's 3/4 of a mile away at tops. Some of them are like, 1/10 of a mile away.
Oh, this is Harold. I think the Hirsch property is also a comp. That's a reliable comp.
And the Hirsch property is in much better condition, much more updated than they sold it, so I don't know.
Maybe that's why I like it.
There you go. That's the reason.
What, you want to move there?
This is Kathleen. I was looking at other sales. Duck Farm is kind of a similar street. There's a 1910 Colonial. I don't know what the condition was, but similar square footage, 3,100 square feet, smaller acreage, 0.37, sold for 807 in January of 2021. So they may not have used it, but I considered, Duck Farm, Mill River, those are kind of the same, lower areas in there. So I look at the Duck Farm one, but that supports the lower 8.
And Duck Farm is a little bit busier, so I would say that it should be less than his.
Yeah, it's that red house. I know where it is. Okay, yeah, it's right off the corner on Duck Farm. Yeah.
It has a bit of a funky layout to it inside.
Yeah, it was on the market for a long time, right?
Yeah, so I could see why,
Well, I mean, this house seems to fit in with the several of the comps. Are we ready to vote?
Were they 832?
Yeah,
How much land?
it's an acre.
It's an acre. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big house. Where's their depreciation is 5? And that's
Right.
probably part of the problem.
So let's take it to a vote. All those in favor of granting this appeal to the requested amount, please raise your hand.
Yes,
Who said yes?
Alexis.
That's 5 in favor, 1 opposed.
Opposed.
No, it's unanimous. Oh,
No. I was opposed, Harold.
thank you. The timing is off. Okay, the appeal is granted. Vote is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favor, 1 opposed. Peter's opposed. Thank you, Peter. Judy, thank you for your service.
You're welcome. I'll see you, Wednesday?
Not tomorrow?
She might not be on tomorrow. I can look.
Okay.
I think I was. All right. So Kathleen, we'll touch base tomorrow, okay?
Yep, sounds good.
Great, thanks. Bye,
Good night.
everybody.
We still have a quorum, so we'll continue. Peter, you have another?
Sure. Okay, this is appeal number 525. And this is for 1383 Brookside Drive. And the owners are William and Nancy Bailey. Nancy Bailey was the appellant. And the town has valued this property at $936,300. And the appellants are requesting a value of $850,000. And I'd like to make a motion to approve the requested value of $850,000. Do I have a second?
This is Harold, I'll second.
All right, Harold, thank you. And just give me a moment to get this on my screen. Okay, so the appellant came in, they provided some comps. Okay, and they were talked a lot about how the houses across the street went down by 20%, but the subjects went up. They have a table in the file of value of the land. They say there are wetlands here. I can't remember. I don't see an adjustment on the property. On the field card, there doesn't seem to be an adjustment for wetlands. So again, maybe Ross, you can bring this one up so we can take a look at what they're talking about. All right. And again, they were saying that there were 200,000 more than any sales in the last 6 to 8 months, either side of the street. So I'll just go through quickly their comps. All right. So 243 Hillbrook. All right, so let me just give you a little bit more on the subject. The subject is a 1955 Colonial. It's got about 30% depreciation at a factor of 5. It's a little over an acre of land and just under 3,000 square feet. It's got 3 bedrooms, 3.5 baths. Okay, so they provided 243 Hillbrook. 243 Hillbrook actually has 2 acres of land and about 2,500 square feet. 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. This one actually does have an adjustment, even though for the excess land there, they do have a 50% reduction for the the 20.02 acres over. More of a depreciation. More of a depreciation value. 1509 Brookside. This is just over an acre of land and just under 3,000 square feet. This is 5 bedrooms, 2.5, actually 2.5 baths and an extra half bath. All right, that's got about 35% depreciation on it. 1351 Brookside. This is a ranch. All right, this is a ranch, but it's about 1.1 acres and 2,431 square feet, about 35% depreciation. The next ones are next 2 comps are in the neighborhood 54, which has an adjustment, neighborhood adjustment of 0.9 versus the 1.7. Actually, the first comp as well was in neighborhood 54. Sorry, I didn't mention that. All right. And actually, the first comp also was a unqualified sale, for whatever that means. All right. And actually, it's did I say it's 33? It's 33. They gave me the wrong number. It's actually 33 Hillbrook Lane, and this is a 2-acre piece of property with 3,683 square feet, and let's see here, was a 0.9 adjustment on that due to the neighborhood adjustment. So, and I don't know, did I mention? I guess I didn't mention. So this Hillbrook Lane was sold actually March of 21. So that was 770,000 March of 21. November of 20, the Fry Pond went for 899. 9 of 20, the Brookside went for 1351 Brookside went for 729. 1509 Brookside in May of 20 went for 715, and the Hillbrook one, which I stated was an unqualified sale, went for 650 in May of 20. So anybody have?
This is Harold. I don't see any houses that are in the assessed price range, appraised price range that the town has. They all seem to be lower. Is there a big difference in the properties?
Well, the subject property has just over an acre of land. So the first property is 2 acres. The 1509 Brookside is similar in acreage. The 1351 Brookside is similar in acreage. Fry Pond and Hillbrook are larger property, have an extra acre of land.
This
So
is
it seems to
Kathleen.
me-
I think the deal with this part of Brookside is that the Greenfield Hill neighborhoods are across the street, right on, I think on the other side of Brookside. We're not looking at the neighborhood map right now. So these people who are on the very northern edge of neighborhood code, whatever we're in, 70 or whatever it is.
Right, they're in
Mill
70.
Hill,
That's correct.
I think they're looking to the land values they're looking at have a 0.9 adjustment factor where if you're trying to figure out why they're so different, it's because this neighborhood is a 1.7
Right, 1.7.
Right. And those other guys are 0.9. So that's why the town values are significantly different because they're on the edge of the Greenfield Hill. And so most of the comps she's using are in, I mean, they're still sales, but they are
Your
in that
input
other
is
neighborhood.
invalid.
So that's why you're seeing those price, you're seeing the town values probably a lot lower on those other properties.
So
This
this,
is that
Harold,
from the river one we just did.
so given the proximity to the other homes, wouldn't that indicate that the market value would be more similar than Greenfield Hill pricing?
No, this is Kathleen. I would think that it would start to get closer to Greenfield Hill pricing because it's on the northern edge of, of the Mill Hill district. This is up that way.
Right.
So, the Frog Pond Lane, right? That's just up, is it Bronson Road? No, it's not, whatever it is. It's just up north of Brookside on the left-hand side in there. Those are, kind of different parcels. But did Ross call up? I'm curious to see how wet their property is. Mill River probably goes behind them on Brookside. That he brought it up on the map. That's not the old map, right? That's the new property. Yeah. So I mean, they've got nice privacy in the back because but the Mill River's back there. So.
Right.
I'm not comfortable making an assumption about Greenfield Hill with this property. I'm not a realtor, I'm not an appraiser, so I don't think I'm making that assumption.
The Hillbrook ones are Greenfield Hill neighborhoods, right? They're just north of there.
Yeah.
So I'd like to make a motion. Does anyone have any further? I mean, I see that they have some wetlands on there. But,
I just have a question. Kathleen, explain those. What were you saying about the land again? Where his neighborhood, the factor is what, 1.3, 1 point, I don't get it, 1 point.
Sure, I think it's 1.7. I think, this is Kathleen, I think Harold was questioning why the town value on all the, not the sale price, but the town value on a lot of the comps was a lot lower than their town value. And I think the reason is the majority of it's going to be in the land because they are in neighborhood code 70, Mill Hill, and most of those comps are in a different neighborhood code. They're probably in Lower Greenfield Hill, or I don't remember off the top of my head, but this other one is in neighborhood code 54, whatever that is.
Right.
And that has a 0.9 adjustment code. So the land there has to be a dividing line somewhere, right? So these properties that are on the edge are probably, their land is going to be valued differently. What was it? The Hillbrook Lane one, they have 2 acres valued at $450. Subject property has 1 acre valued at $575.
Right.
But that,
Harold, so yeah, my question relates to the fact that is this land more marketable at a higher price because of where it is on the street?
no, it's not.
It's a busier road.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, it's not, Carol. I'm sorry. It's a busier road. And even though people think that Greenfield Hill has come down in value, which it had, lower Greenfield Hill like that there's not that much difference in the land value. So, and again, it has to do with that neighborhood thing. And yes, there has to be a dividing line, but seriously, Mill Hill, it's nowhere near those properties. Look at the properties that are in the neighborhood and the value of them compared to this. This should be in the Greenfield Hill number with the properties. It abuts Greenfield Hill. I don't see the in Mill Hill. That's way off.
Definitely. Or University, I would have expected it to see it more with the Stilson roads and, the ones that are right around the corner in there. In the Mill River Lane too, I would consider that more of like the University Mill Plain area. But yeah, Mill Hill's really big. So we're seeing Bronson Road, we're seeing, Range Road, we're seeing Fields Rock. It's a big neighborhood code, so you're getting a lot of variety. And these guys are probably on the edge.
So this is Harold again. The request is for $850,000, which when I was looking at the comps, I don't see anything over $900,000, more in the 8s and upper 7s. So I'm kind of understanding where they're coming from.
Oh my.
Yeah, this is Kathleen. I agree with you. I think, we're probably going to see that on some of these. Maybe we have a lot of appeals on Brookside Drive. You know, did the ranch right next door to that? That was familiar. Is that the one that, there was a ranch on Brookside that sold? I don't know if they.
Yeah,
if
Yeah,
that
there's
was
the ranch. Yeah, the ranch went for, the ranch went for 729.
That's next door, right?
Um,
let me see.
13,
Yeah.
13.
729 next door, sold on November 11th, 2020 for 729. It's a 2,400 square foot, 1955 ranch. Similar size lot, very similar lot, similar busy street. And that sold, like I said, right in the reval period for, we have it at 800, but it sold for 729. So I think their 850 is probably accurate. That's my thought.
All right.
Problem with it.
I would like to call a vote, given the
Okay.
hour and the discussion. All those in favor of granting this appeal to the requested amount of $850,000, please raise your hand. Alexis, are you there? It's unanimous. The motion is carried. The appeal is granted to $850,000. Vote is 5-0-0. You got one more in this?
Yeah, I'll do one more.
I have to sign off momentarily, but okay.
All right, can you stand to listen for one more?
Sure.
Thank you.
The two others on Brookside, so.
I have other work to do for my paying job, so I can't stay on.
Okay,
All
so this is appeal number 526. Again, just give me a moment.
It's the neighboring house, right?
That's what I said. I think we're gonna see the most of them.
26.
Okay, so this is
This is the ranch.
number 526, 1351 Brookside Drive. This is Evan and Eliza Kushner. Evan Kushner was the appellant. The town's valued this property $800,500, and they're requesting a value of $705,000. So I did put in. So I don't, Ross. I don't know if you answered this question. I put in a request to about the generator. Do you know if that was the appellant claims that there is not a generator on the property, but they do have it listed in their card with about a $16,000 assessment on it. Appraisal, I guess, on it.
This is Harold. Did you get a response to your request?
I don't. I just put it in this morning, so I don't know if Ross is able to turn it around. So I'm just telling you that's what's on. That's one of the questions on this property. So I'll just go through right now.
This is Ross. I don't think I got to that yet, but I can take it off right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Peter, this is Kathleen, because this is the one we just looked at. They bought it for 729, right? And they want to go to 705.
Right.
If we take the generator off, the 729 number.
Right. Well, but listen.
With no generator.
I agree with that, but 729, they bought the house for 729. They
That's
knew
true.
there was no generator.
And there was no
Right.
generator. You're right. You're right. So I'd probably prefer to see the 729 number, but.
Yeah, this is Ross. I don't see the generator on the card.
Unless that's been updated.
This is Harold. Is it in the appraisal?
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Wrong property. I forgot to switch properties.
Okay. Well, it appears to me that if they bought it a month before within the reval period, and we have that sales price, that would establish the market value. Bought it on September the 11th, 2020 for $729.
Right. It looks like they've added a rear deck that, probably went into the, because it says 10-120, so that should have been on this revaluation here. Just some things that I saw that they have. It says a remodel kitchen. I just have to review that.
The remodel kitchen was done previously.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, 0% complete.
Right. I think that was the question I had, right? So.
Peter, what was that question?
Just said, it says that there's a remodel of kitchen. The permit was from 9/17/10, 2010, but it does say 0% complete, and it says change. If you follow that through.
Percent complete. Okay.
So do we want to go to 729? Is that sort of the thought here?
It seemed to me to be appropriate. There's no issue with the generator, and I think that if there's a car change that needs to be made, maybe it's just a grammatical thing. It didn't take 10 years to do the kitchen, I don't think. But I think that the sales price establishes the market value. So if we wish to make an amendment to adjust the price.
My question is, have they now completed the kitchen, even though it says 0%? I'm just asking to clarify that. Is that not been?
We can ask the assessor, because it looks like a change was made in 10-120 because it was re-inspected. So maybe that established that whatever the condition of the kitchen was finalized.
Must be the deck, the WD.
This is Ross. I don't know why, that permit is listed as 0. It's possible it never got done, but it is 10 years old. On the deck, we added that by reviewing the sale and found the deck because it was not listed in the past.
Okay.
Last thing would be the assessment without the generator, or the value without the generator, $784,200.
Okay. So
do you want to do this as a two-part again, where we, remove the generator as a card correction, and then we approve, vote on a revised amount?
Well, I think we also want to see if there's going to be an amendment to adjust the price further.
That's what I'm saying, do it as two. So, yeah. The first one is just to be to remove the generator, right, Peter?
Sure. So I make a motion. I make a motion to remove the generator and field card, and which would reduce the town's value to $784,200. All those in favor?
Second. I second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Second. Harold, second. All those in favor? Kathleen?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, in favor. I'm writing minutes.
It's unanimous. Okay, thank you. And now.
And then the second motion is, 784.
Okay, so, I'd like to make a motion to amend the requested value to, actually, I'd like to make a motion to amend to 729,000 to reduce the value to 729,000. Do I have a second?
I second.
All right, thank you.
Harold seconds.
Okay, all those in favor of granting in part this appeal to 729,000, raise your hand.
It's unanimous.
All right.
All right, the motion is granted.
The amendment, right?
Oh, that
Yeah,
was,
they asked, did they ask for
And-
7:05?
and
I'm
yes,
sorry. They asked for 7:05. Okay, so it is in part down to 7:29.
in part to 7:29, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for hanging in there. We have one more for you, Peter?
No, I'm done myself. I've got, I know I'm,
Okay.
all right.
Yeah, this is
you all for your-
Kathleen. So tomorrow night we have Peter. Hopefully Alexis will have all the paperwork in her files. And we'll see if we can't make our way through, So Peter has 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 left. Alexis has 3 or 4 left. And I have some, Mill Hill that I can do if we need that. And whoever else, Paulette's there, that at minimum is our quorum, and if we need anybody else tomorrow night, we'll let them
Thank you.
know.
Thank
That
you very
work?
much, everyone, and
Okay,
appreciate your help.
Okay,
all right.
good night.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye.
I have a question.
Adjourn. I make a motion to adjourn.
Kathleen, don't go.
Okay, you make a motion to adjourn though, right, Harold? Do you wanna? I made
Yeah.
a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn, and you can have a conversation after the fact.
Just a question.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be on the record. It's just a request from a